You're tuned in for your dosage of positivity and motivation. I go by the name Lady T, and I want to welcome you all to Sip of Tea, episode 30. On this episode, we're going to be talking about getting organized, staying productive, and ultimately setting the tone for how we're going to achieve our goals this year. But before I dive into the tea for today, I want you to sit back, relax, enjoy the intro track, and I'll be right back.
Mastermind. Yeah. Yo, me pray every time I feel can't do no different. Swear me have a win. That's why I'ma try again. Pray every time I feel, cause God always a listen. One day I have to win. That's why I'ma try again. Send me working hard while I'm still struggling. Minimum wage can't cover my bills. Somebody tell me how I'm gonna live. They might complain, but I'm not giving. I'll do it now, sure. Only me and God know how my day go. But when me have to make a bad drive out of town, I'm free, oh, my one forgot the place and yes, me, Tanisha first starter. When me just stop, me used to hear be laughter. But you me know say a time of the master. And everything I say I'm going do me, I go after. You see the free, that's why every day my OD. Just I get a girl from the east with a dream. I shoot for the top and me go bring you whole team. Every time I feel, can't do no different. Swear we have a win. That's why we try again. Every time I feel, cause God always a listen. Day I have, that's why we try again.
And we're back. I hope you guys enjoyed the intro track. I hope it brought you some uplifting energy as we get ready to dive into today's tea. We have a lot to cover today. And with that being said, I'm going to try my best not to be with the long talking today. So we're going to start and we're going to dive right into this tea. And I'm just going to start with, the sip of tea, the reasoning behind why this episode, is coming to life. Then we're going to dive into what I actually do to stay organized. I'm going to give you like a run through of what a typical day, in my life would look like if everything were to go exactly as planned and how I would like it to be if I were to have my ideal work day. And from there, I'm going to jump into some productivity tips and then some community tips that were actually provided by our Instagram community. I wanted to see what everyone's doing, to see how many of us are actually doing, similar things, because it helps, to paint a picture of the kind of people that are listening to the show. So I'm glad to see, your tips and what you all do to keep organized. And I hope that this episode will help you to add even more tools to your arsenal. So let us begin. Actually, before we actually begin, I want you guys to keep some things in mind as you journey through this episode. I like that from the last episode. I think it's nice because most of the time I do take you all on a little story. I give you the sip of tea and then I leave you guys with some tools. But yes, as we journey through this episode, I want you guys to be mindful of your organization. And that's really the main thing that I want you to remember as you do any task. And pretty much what I mean by that is to be intentional with what it is that you're organizing and understand your why. Like, what is getting this task completed going to really do for you? Because once you think about it intentionally and you set your intention to get it done, I do believe it is going to help you to be more disciplined with your organization. Because a lot of the times, like as I said, you guys gave some really good tips. A lot of us know what to do to get organized and to stay organized. And I know for me, sometimes I put all of my tools in place and I package them together and I do what it is that I need to do to stay organized. However, I don't have that discipline portion to actually get it done, because when I'm just like, I don't want to do it, I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to do it. However, approaching, my tasks with a greater understanding as to why I want to get this done, or what the real purpose in completion is going to be for me, has really been, very beneficial with me actually getting my tasks completed. Like, think about it from this perspective. Think about volleyball, for instance, and the person setting you up, I did not play volleyball, so I don't have all of the correct terminology, but you've set up your court and someone has now set the ball for you. All you really have to do is spike it. So you set your organization, but you're not hitting your target, and you need to find a way to actually hit your target, So those are just the things that I want you to keep in mind as you actually listen to this episode. And when you go to do any task or to set your intention for organization, just remember to think about your why and approach it mindfully, so that in the back of your head you have these reminders as to why you're going to get them done. All right? Okay. So I really wanted to talk about organization because I personally, as organized as I have been previously at other stages of my life, felt as though that was a portion of myself that I really needed to get back. And I didn't really notice it until, I guess you could say I noticed it last summer. When I was talking to my friend Summer about routine setting, and she was just talking to me about the importance of retraining and setting a new routine for ourselves, especially as we grow into our own beings, and we don't have the guidance of our parents all the time, and we don't have school to necessarily tell us what to do. And just hearing those words from her really reinstated the value of routine and getting organized, because, like, guys, remember, I was done school, I was just working, I hadn't really gotten into the flow of my own routine. Like, I was working for the man, and I did not have as much control over my life as I wanted to. And then I moved out. So what did I do? I started to just kick up my foot. Why? Because I felt as though I deserved to just kick up my foot after all the work I have been putting through for the past, 20 years? Because, when you're a child, you don't really do as much. So maybe less than 20 years. But that is what I had done. So I was no longer as organized as I normally was. And I really felt as though I needed to just get back to that person, especially because I had that everlasting to-do list that I told you guys about. And the to-do list honestly just kept on getting longer. And it wasn't because I wanted the to-do list to get longer. It was because I kept on having all these ideas. However, I wasn't really executing them. So these are things that I wanted to get done, and then I kept on thinking of more things that I wanted to get done. So the list just kept on piling up and piling up because I wasn't executing the ideas that I came up with. And nothing wrong with that, because as I said, I needed to kick up my foot. And now looking back and looking at, my process, it was very important that I just had that moment to kick up my foot, because I'm gonna be really busy in the next years if I want to attain the life that I envision. So it was good to kick up my foot and let the ideas and stuff flow in. But I felt it's time to get back. And I know a lot of people right now are really trying to get back to self. A lot of people are trying to make something better for themselves, and I want to, be able to help you and also be able to listen back to this episode. If one day I seem to falter again, I know where to, pick myself up from and restart and prep my routine. So I do hope that you find value in hearing about, my routine and the things that I have been doing to feel more empowered and confident in my work, because I'm getting my work done. And I also want you to remember that as I tell you these things, I am still working on organizing myself. When I first decided in the summer of 2020 that I was going to start to rebuild a routine, I never anticipated that I was actually going to go back to school. I didn't anticipate that I would be undertaking projects that I'm currently working on. So as I started to get organized, I realized why it was so important, and I'm glad that I started then, because I might not have been able to handle what it is that I have to do now. So please bear in mind, I am still working on this. This is nothing that is perfected per se. As I said, this is my ideal, work day. There are times where I don't get all the tasks done on my list. Most of the time, there's at least 2 items that get shifted to another day. And we're going to talk about that as we go through, what I do to stay organized. But yeah, take some pointers. I'm glad that you guys shared your tips with me so I can share them with everyone else, and that will be coming at the end of the episode as well. And also do what works for you. What keeps me organized may not work for you. Our brains all work differently. We all have various different habits, and at the end of the day, it's all about finding a balance that works for us. And you can, mix and match and try all the various different things and see what works for you. So let us get on into my organizational routine. We're going to begin with the morning and then how I actually start my day. In order for me to have a very organized and productive day, I really need to set my intentions from the moment I wake up. And that's something that I noticed once I started to really work on developing a morning routine. I started to notice the difference of how my days would play out. If I didn't do yoga or stretch in the morning, I noticed how my body would get tight as the day progressed, and that would make me not want to, do work because I'm uncomfortable and I want to lay down, and then I try to lay down and do work and I'm falling asleep because that might not necessarily be the best position to be doing any form of work. So I have to really focus and tell myself that this is how I'm going to be starting my days. And what I do is I really prioritize, getting stuff done in the morning. Because when I get stuff done in the morning, once I've accomplished the little morning routine that I have done, especially if I'm up early and I've done those 4 things right away in my morning, I feel accomplished, and then it helps me to be confident in knowing that I can achieve more in the day. And now all I really have to do is get the other tasks done because I've taken that time to set my intention for the day. So I normally wake up, thanks be to God, I normally wake up, I get woken up in the morning, and the very first thing that I do is I pray. I have like a prayer / affirmation that says, in the morning when I wake up, I'm grateful for life. I'm blessed to see another day. I know that God has not forgotten about me. God has plans for my life, and every day I will live out my purpose. And being able to say that to myself in the morning helps me to really just, even if I don't want to get up, I'm just like, get up, start your day, go to the washroom, sit on the toilet, turn on the kettle, just do something, because at the end of the day, you have been woken up with purpose. And regardless of if you don't make all of your to-do list today, or if you don't even know what you're going to be doing today, you're still going to make this day purposeful. You're going to do something with it, and you're going to feel good about it at the end of the day. So after I do that gratefulness affirmation, I do my meditation. I'm actually doing a 30-day challenge right now. Normally it would have been just stretching. So it would have been pray and stretch, a couple of deep breaths, just because I know deep breathing really helps to relax my body. And as I said, my body needs to feel good for me to go through the day. But now I've been doing this mindful meditations morning challenge. Every morning I've been waking up and I've been doing at least 10 minutes of meditation. And I also found my small daily devotion. So I've been reading that again, and I do my stretching as well. So that takes me an hour. So I have to keep that in mind when I get to scheduling my day. I have to know, yes, this is how my day is going to start, but I need to put an hour into my day to be able to do all that. And then I also make sure that I have a little bit of time to put up the sip of tea morning motivation. I could be more organized and actually pre-select them, which I don't. I normally wake up in the morning and it takes me time to kind of find the posts that I want to put up. So I could cut back to be more organized and have more time for my day by doing that. But as of right now, you know, it works and I'm not in that much of a rush. So I'm going to leave it as is. And after I've done those, I guess five things, then I will have breakfast. I normally have a little bit of tea while, or like, you know, in between any of those 4 things. I like my tea to cool a little bit, so I'll do something and then I'm like, okay, I'll drink it fast and I'll go do the next thing, and then I'll have breakfast after that. And so after I've done those things, I then move into my day. And my day is normally already categorized, or like I pre-assign kind of what I'm going to be doing, schedule my day normally the day before, or depending on the amount of tasks I have to do for the week. If I know it's going to make me anxious, you know, doing a certain set of tasks and not necessarily doing another task, I have to plan out the next few days. So I remind myself, it's okay, like you've already scheduled the time for this. But normally I fine tune what I'm going to be doing the next day, the night before. I don't like to really put a time to things, especially if I don't have a specific time already, just because sometimes you just want to sleep in bed a little bit longer, and I don't want the disappointment after with myself or being like, oh, you didn't do this at 11. Like, you know, if I have the flexibility, I'm not really going to put a lot of time to it. However, there are things in life that you do have to put times to. So I itemize my day and I use like the task list on my phone. I use a notepad. I have like important reminders on the whiteboard, which are things that might not necessarily have a time to them. But if I find myself with excess time, this is something that I should be, you know, focusing on, because it might be a small task that I can just bang right out and get it done. However, it's not a priority, and that's something that really helps me to plan and assign my task list, is to prioritize my day. That is really what helps to keep me organized. And I also use my agenda to put like the time sensitive deadlines in there, so I know, okay, at this time of the day, this is something that needs to happen at this time, or else I don't know when it will happen again. And those are like meetings or appointments, or maybe, you know, on Fridays at 11 when I am in Layla Delia's Vibrate Higher Daily Circle community, listening to her live conversation and listening to her Q&A. That has to happen at 11 because there's no replay for that. So if I miss it, I'm like, oh, okay, I've just missed it. So that is what it is. So yes, I prioritize and I put deadlines on things that need deadlines. And then for things that, you know, have more flexibility, or, you know, things that I have more control over, things that can change, I don't necessarily beat myself up too much about those. So I gotta prioritize, guys. And like what I also do with my days when I'm planning my days is to try and balance the day with something for myself outside of my morning routine, and then something for like, you know, clients or school. Maybe it's getting something done for Sip of Tea and also completing an assignment. I really try to balance that way, because it helps me to really feel more productive and it helps me to feel like I'm in much more control of my life. So when it comes time for me to actually get my task started, what I normally do is I like to leave like physical reminders of whatever it is that I have to get done. So first of all, the space has to be clean and organized. I will not be putting down physical reminders of what I'm going to be getting done or setting up my workstation on a dirty workstation, because all my mind's going to be thinking about is, what do I have to clean? I can't, you know, spread things out like I need to. It's visually chaotic and my mind is already spinning like this is not how it's going to be. So I got to clean up the space. I have to remove any like distractions. I only keep the things that are really necessary to, you know, completing the task. And I leave physical reminders, like let's say I'm going to be doing a school assignment, I will leave that specific book out while I go and get my snacks and, you know, get, you know, my candles and water, and, you know, while I'm telling all my friends that, you know, I'm going to go do some schoolwork now, like I'll text you later, you know, wrapping up those conversations. So once I have done all of that and I've cleared up my space and my head, and I've taken my deep breaths. I even read, like, I even put the YouTube links or whatever mix I'm going to be listening to. I even put that up on the computer, ready to go. Everything is set. So after I am ready and I've set my intention and I have removed those distractions, then I dive into the work. And that usually helps me to stay focused and get things done. Once I've completed the tasks, I tend to feel like exhausted or a little overwhelmed because I feel as though I've put a lot of strain on my brain or, my focus, especially considering I wasn't using it previously. And I don't want to overload myself. So I've been really focusing on resting in between my tasks now, a lot more than ever. I used to be the person that was like, okay, this is done now, boom, what's next? And boom, what's next? And boom, what's next? But that's not going to work for me now. It's going to make me overwhelmed and feel, burnt out. It's going to cause my body to tighten up. So in between tasks, I think it's really important for you to take a breather. For me, sometimes I'll go like bother Josh. I'll be like, I'm done my work. What are you doing? Just bother him. I'll check in with my friends. I'll be like, hey, just checking in. I got this done. How's your work going? All right, cool. Yeah, I'm off to go do this now, Or sometimes I will mindfully scroll Instagram. I'll check my notifications. I'll eat, even though I was snacking before. Sometimes I need like a proper meal because I forget to eat sometimes, and sometimes we forget that food fuels us in order to stay productive. So I eat, and sometimes I stretch based on how I was doing the work. Sometimes I do work on the yoga mat, so I'm laying on my stomach. So after I'm done working, I have to do like a counter pose to stretch out the lower back now because of how I was raised. Anyways, so these are the things I do just to feel good before starting the next task. And now when it's time to actually start the next task, sometimes I actually change like the location of where I've been working to give myself a fresh atmosphere. Some tasks are better done in, different places. There are tasks that, you should be at your desk for. There are tasks that you can do on your yoga mat. There are tasks that you can do cross-legged in your couch or, in a reclining chair, kick up. So I sometimes, just to give myself a break from making it feel as though I am working, I take my work elsewhere just to change my atmosphere. Normally, if I could go outside, like in the summertime, I will be working outside. That is where I love to work. That's my ideal work environment, is outside. But I get cold easily, and I can't afford for snow to be coming and damaging my papers or laptop. Like, no. No, thank you. Yeah. And as I, get into the next task, something else to do is I mentally prepare myself for it. And I tell myself, I'm going to get this done, because normally after completing the first task, for me, I sometimes find it difficult to go do another task, especially if I haven't organized my tasks in a way that allows there to be some flexibility with the work that I'm doing and, make it a little bit more different. Like, I don't want to be writing 2 papers back to back. I'd rather write a paper and go edit some graphics after and then watch, or review class notes later. I like to make sure that there's a variety in the work that I'm doing so that I can always stay, engaged with what I'm doing. I don't get bored of the task. Even though I like to do them sometimes, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm still doing this. It becomes overwhelming. And I also check in on the progress that I've made for the day. So I check off the tasks that I've completed. I make sure that I'm still aligned to, get to the next steps of the day, because sometimes I'll finish a task early and I'll do something else instead of jumping to the next task right away. And then that task takes my mind way off course. So I have to check back in with myself to make sure that the day that I said I was going to have is still the day that I'm going to have. And the things that are priority, or the things that have time-sensitive deadlines, that they get done, and the things that, can be moved, I, make the necessary adjustments to move them to maybe another day, or I rearrange something. And then at the end of the day, once, I've repeated this process again of resting and getting tasks done, I stop, I look at what I've accomplished, and I remind myself that I need to congratulate myself. I actually have like an end of day affirmation that, says that I will rest in knowing that today I've done my best. Tonight I set the tone for tomorrow. I breathe, I relax, I find my peace, I am thankful for God's faithfulness for seeing me through, and I congratulate myself. And sometimes if I don't say that, I find it very difficult to put things away and just go to bed, because what ends up happening is I'm like, no, I need to get this done. You know, sometimes things take longer than we anticipate or schedule for. And sometimes I'm really like, no, I want to get this done, and I'm staying up, I'm half asleep trying to get the task done, and I'm not taking that time to congratulate myself for everything else I did do. Then I wake up the next day and that day is a little bit behind because I didn't rest and knowing that I did my best today, and I didn't take the time to just breathe, relax, and go on my bed. So I can't wake up early the next morning. Like, it is literally like that sometimes. So yeah, that is how I stay organized. That is what my organization routine looks like, and I hope that it helped to, you know, get you to critically think about your routine and, you know, your organization and how you're going to be doing that intentionally. See, a lot of the time we don't really think about, you know, the preparation for the organization. We think of, okay, let me write down a list and then I'm going to get things done. But being organized is really a structural process, and it really goes back again to that discipline aspect. And knowing is, you know, not just enough. It's not enough to say, yes, I have this list. How are you going to make sure that you accomplish the goals that you have set out for yourself? You have to start somewhere. Starts with basic organization, small little tips, routine building, setting things up for yourself, and then, you know, just eventually having that discipline. The reason why I'm not necessarily super hard on myself all the time is because I know that this is a process, and I'm working to know what's going to help me to better accomplish and achieve my goals. So if I have to make changes along the way to make sure that it's better for me, I'm okay with that. But I still have to be disciplined to do what it is that I know now in order to see what is going to work and what is not going to work. And then eventually, one day, I will have this routine super embedded into, you know, who I am, that it becomes second nature. And organization is second nature. You know, getting things done is just natural. I don't have to overthink it or dread it at times. I literally will just be organized and committed to getting things done, and things will start to come into fruition the more I practice this into my life. And before I close off the episode, I want to leave you guys with some of my productivity tips and also the community tips that you all shared with me. And again, I really appreciate you guys interacting with me on the page and, you know, having those conversations with me. I think that's one of the best parts of my job. I love putting out episodes. I love to record, but I'm really starting to like talking with you guys a lot more. These conversations are great, so thank you. The first tip that I have is to assign deadlines. When I had that, you know, everlasting to-do list, I didn't really have a lot of deadlines. It was, as I said, just a bunch of ideas and ideas that were not being executed because I didn't really have a timeline as to how I plan to execute it. Is this something I want to do now? 5 years? 10 years? 20 years down the line? Do I have the resources to do any of this stuff? I never really critically thought about it or, you know, assigned the deadlines to think about how it could actually come to play. You know, I didn't take that time. The second step, or, you know, not step, but the second tip or reminder for productivity is to create your space and make sure that your atmosphere is sacred, and that is one that promotes productivity. Find what works best for you so that every time when you sit down to push out work, you know that it's going to be easy for you. You know that you don't really have to think about it. It's going to come naturally, and you're just going to get it done. It's just going to be like that. So every time you're going to be getting work done, set your intention and, you know, have your atmosphere, create that space that is going to help you to get it done. I highly recommend getting a planner. A lot of you guys have said that you use planners, which is great, but for anyone listening that does not utilize a planner, or maybe used to and then, you know, like me, thought, oh, I didn't need one anymore, life is whatever. If you plan on doing something, you should definitely have a planner. Even if it's just for little minute tasks, it's super important to help to keep you organized. You might not even need a physical planner. You can even get like an app on your phone, or just something that's going to help you to plan your life. Like it could be your notepad. It could be the calendar app on your phone. Sometimes, like, not sometimes, I really started utilizing like the reminder on my phone. Like I've actually been setting reminders because I don't want everything on my written to-do list because it becomes overwhelming. So sometimes having certain things in different places so that just when you need it is nice. So using those alarms as well. You can set weekly, bi-weekly, remember to read this week, or you're great, you're gonna be even like little reminders that are affirmations that go off randomly throughout the week just reminds you that you're gonna get things done and that you're gonna be organized. But yes, planners and scheduling, that is tip number 3. The fourth tip that I have is for people who are really starting out, or anyone who's starting a new project. Remember to start small and not to necessarily overdo it. You don't know how much of you certain tasks are going to require. So try and break things down and slowly get comfortable and familiar with it. If time, allows you to do that, I would highly recommend it. Test how long you can do a certain task for. You don't want to end up at the end of the day frustrated because, you never got a certain thing done. So take it at your pace. See what works, what doesn't work, what needs to be modified, and then slowly start to add more and more and more and more, and then you'll be invincible. Number 5 is to understand that it's a process. Productivity is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't one night write that you're gonna do everything on your list and the next day you get it done. I had my calendar or agenda that I've been working with since like beginning of last year, or the end of 2019 actually. I think it was a 2-year calendar or a 2-year planner, and it wasn't until like December of 2020 where I was completing more than 75% of my tasks for the week in the assigned week that I said I was going to do it. So please give yourself time. It is a process. And also on the process of productivity, know that the work is a process, and you should really break down your tasks that you're going to do and try and spread it out over a course of a couple of days if you can, just to give yourself that break as well while you're doing things. Don't wait until the deadline to try and get it done, because you don't know how much work something is going to be. Number 6, break your subtasks down. So kind of like, not really break your subtasks down, break your tasks into subtasks. And it's kind of like starting small, and again with, understanding that it's a process. Break them down and do them over time if you can. Start small, accomplish something, feel good, feel confident. Know if you might need to set aside additional time to get it done because you realize it might take you a little longer or be done sooner than you think. Break things down. Don't overwhelm yourself trying to get everything done in one day. Number 7, keep a overall to-do list. So I have my everlasting to-do list, and even on that to-do list I have a priority, and then I have an ongoing, because some things don't really need to get done until the second quarter of the year. So I'm taking it as I go, and I have my weekly to-do list and I have my daily to-do list, and then I have just reminders for things that the general that I can get done at any point in time, and I have the whiteboard. So keep multiple different lists for different reasons. Do not overwhelm yourself. We are all dealing with a lot right now, and it's important that we take time for ourselves and that we prioritize our mental health. And that's one way that we can do that. We don't need to continuously remind ourselves of what we have to do. We need to give ourselves the time and opportunity to focus on the work at hand. Okay? And also with those lists, you guys can revise them as needed. Yes, I said deadlines earlier, but as I said, if you have deadlines that you control, you can kind of change them, and they're not necessarily deadlines, they're more like guidelines. Especially if you're an entrepreneur, it is a forecasted time period for you to get something done, unless it's one of my homegirls who's launching her beauty supply store here in the Niagara region, and you have a date to put that out. I believe it's February 14th. Look out for that on all social media platforms. But that's different. That is something that is time sensitive. So you can't necessarily, push that back. But you could, you never know. If your communication strategy is hot, you could do whatever you want. And the last tip, I think maybe this is 8, I hope. Yeah, this would be nice. It's not a long 10 list. I didn't put numbers, they're just arrows. So I've been trying to count them as I was going along. But I think this is 8. So the final productivity tip from myself is to check things off of your list when you get done. Remember to congratulate yourself. Look at what you have accomplished. Take a moment to revel in what you have done. Take that moment to be like, yes, I did that. Enjoy it. You put your time and effort into it. You might as well stop and congratulate yourself that you did that. Be proud of yourself. And I think that when you take those moments to stop and acknowledge the work that you've done, you'll be more motivated to do more work. Those are all of my tips for productivity. And the last thing that I will leave you with is just some community reminders and tips for generally staying organized. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to post, I can't remember the name of the graphic, and I told myself I would look it up before I came to record, but I'm going to be posting a graphic that will count the amount of time certain people use certain words, and the bigger the word, the more it was used. So I will be posting all of these organizational tips on the Instagram feed sometime this week. So do check that out as well. It's kind of cool to see it visually, because I'm just going to list them for you. You're not going to know who said what. I might share that on Instagram. I'm not going to sit here and read through everyone's posts. I will highlight a few as I go through these tips, but definitely check that out when you get the chance. All right, so the very first tip for organization is someone said routine, which is a definite yes. Setting reminders. Having a accountability partner and buddy, which I think is really great, especially if you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people and you guys all have things that you're doing. It's great to have those friendships where you don't really need to be with the person all the time. You can check in, get your thing done, and link back up after. Other tips are color coordination. A lot of people were saying it helps to make things feel less overwhelming because it's easier to find, and I completely agree with that. If you can color code something and it doesn't get super crazy, by all means do that. I also had someone who said that color coding their closet also helps them to stay organized as well, just by knowing what hanger means what, so they can grab pants or a top or something, which is really cool. So I didn't think of that. That's a really good way just to get things on the go and make sure that you are making the most of your time. A lot of people said that they write, which is great. I think that's the very first step to getting the thoughts out of your mind, and the first initial reminder, so that you're not dwelling on it and you can focus on the task at hand, is just writing down what you need to get done and creating just a general checklist and being able to visually see it. And someone said that if I don't write, I probably might not do it. And I'm like, yep, I agree. The way how my brain works in overdrive, I'm thinking about so many things that sometimes I come up with a great idea, and if I don't write it down before bed, I'm like, oh man, I forgot. Because I'm thinking about the next thing. It happens. So writing it down is definitely great. I really loved this tip of manifestation and visualizing it. At first, someone said they have a vision board, and I was like, a vision board for organization? And I was like, okay, that's kind of different. At least, you're seeing it as you go, and as you accomplish it, you're able to see that you're accomplishing things that you put right in front of your face. So I think that is also really cool. I've never really thought of that. And someone said manifestation in the sense that they visualize their future self and understand how the organization is going to benefit them in the future. And I was like, yeah, that's definitely a great tip, just to stay motivated and uplifted while you get your work done, just to be organized. I loved it. We also had time blocking or scheduling. A lot of people were saying that they break things down into smaller tasks, which is great. I loved the people who said they listen to music, because I've had people tell me they don't understand how I can focus with music playing, and I'm like, honestly, music is like a healthy distraction, because I don't really listen to the lyrics. I just bob my head and my body is moving and I'm just in my flow. So music to me sometimes is that distraction that I need, that closes out all the other distractions. I also really loved the reward system, which is great. Just congratulating yourself reward systems are great. At the end of the day, rewarding yourself with something good, or even rewarding yourself with something after each task. It could be that nap. Like, that's great. I also had some people who said that they budget, and I was like, okay, at first I don't really do a lot of budgeting, and I should do it a lot more often. It is something I'm going to be doing this year, but at first I'm like, how does a budget keep you organized? But then I'm like, actually, I think it really does. How do you stay on task to achieving your goals if you don't have the funds or the resources necessary to get you to your goals? I mean, this is for something that really requires funding, but one of your goals could be to, eat breakfast, but you spent all your money buying pizza, so you don't have money to buy yourself proper groceries, so it's easier to go buy a $1.99 McMuffin sandwich. So I didn't think about that. So I think that's good. And now while you're out on the road buying this McMuffin sandwich, you're taking away time from being in your house doing your work. Okay? All right. Other tips that we had were removing distractions, planning, prepping, using a planner, categorizing your task, tracking your completion, setting your goals, and using calendars. Now, these are all really amazing tips for staying organized. I know that you guys are all using at least one of these, but I hope that hearing my experiences and just the tips from your fellow community members, that you are, inspired by this episode and you try something different that you might not have normally tried otherwise. Now, that's all the tea for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you've heard, be sure to subscribe and follow Sip of Tea on whatever platform you're listening on. For daily positivity and motivation, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Sip of Tea Podcast. And to get the tea when it's hot, just click the link in the description box. This was your girl, Lady T, and I'm tuning out until the next Sip of Tea.
Cause God always listen. That's why we try again. Nowadays me just want balance for mentally no. Must stop tell myself some I don't good enough. I know like say I just know life are rough. No for keep on pushing and don't ease up. But even when I try stay out the way, crosses them want see my break. Them not gonna live for see the day. Yo, my bitch.